Ulalia Woodside, good to see you. Thanks for speaking with me today.
Well, it's wonderful to see you after all of these years, David. Happy to make the connection and to be invited to share a little with you.
Well, excellent. Tell me briefly where you are right now. I know that you're sitting in front of a background of your current organization, but are you in Hawaii?
I am. I am in Hawaii, and these are some beautiful mamane flowers here. But I'm actually sitting in Waimanalo on Oahu. I am sitting in my family's home, and it's where I've been living my whole life, right here on Waimanalo Beach, still in my family home.
Amazing. Well, I mean, I'm going to have a lot of questions for you just about the land. I mean, you have your entire life from childhood all through your adult life, and including, your professional activity, has been protecting and understanding the land in Hawaii. So I want to dig into that. But first, I want to learn about your family history. Maybe we could start on your mother's side, then we'll get to, I guess, the Woodside side. But tell me about your mom's family. Where was she from? What's her background?
My mother is Orpha Leanika Rosilani o Maui Long. She was born and raised on Maui, and her mother was born and raised on Maui as well. On my mother's maternal side of her family are Hawaiian, and her father, Henry Dwyer Keao Long, was from Kauai. His grandfather was a captain at the time of the kingdom in Hawaii, Captain Thomas Long. I am a Native Hawaiian. I'm a Kanaka Oiwi. And so my mother's family was that foundation for me. Those values, that way of thinking, language, traditions. Going to family reunions was to revisit all of that history, to learn all of that history. Thankfully, cousins a couple generations ago wrote a bunch of it down. The names of the grandparents and the great-grandparents and their siblings continues to be known by the younger generations, and what they did, what they were known for, what we can be proud of.
Are there any particularly, notable or dramatic or kind of heroic stories from your family history that it's kind of like a greatest hit you guys always tell, like, oh, you won't believe this one, but your grandfather, your great, something along those lines?
Oh gosh, there are many of them, and they are laced with a type of connection to place. We have stories of my grandfather who used to like to go out fishing. He was tossed overside of the boat and was missing for quite some time. And he tells the story of a shark coming to him and helping him, and bringing him back to shore, helping him make sure he got back safe to shore, and he was found again on shore. A story that we tell often is of my mother. An owl flew in front of her car, but it was a pueo, and she brought the owl home. That night, she had a dream, and in the dream, her father told her what that owl's name was, and so his name was Pomai, from out of the darkness. But my aunt shows up the next morning at our gate, and she tells my mother, "I hear you have a visitor. Our father visited me last night, and he says you have a visitor that I need to come and see." And so my aunt was, just thrilled for us to have that owl for a period of time in our family. Like many Hawaiian families, we have aumakua. You'll hear many Hawaiian families speaking about having a shark as an aumakua, an owl as an aumakua is not uncommon.
I have a lot more questions about the Hawaiian culture that was a big part of your life and continues to be. But let's move first to your father's side of your
Oh,
family.
yes.
Who are the Woodsides And
Yeah.
how did your parents meet?
Yeah, my father's David Harold Woodside, and he was born in Kapa'au, Kohala on Hawaii Island. His mother is of a family that had been in Hawaii since the early 1800s. They lived in Hilo, the Luscombs and the Wilhelms. They had bakery for a period of time in Hilo, have those stories of selling bread out the front door and beer out the back door, and at times different royalty as they're passing through town would stop by. My father was born on Hawaii Island, and his father came to Hawaii from Ohio to work in the sugar mills. They moved to Oahu and had a foundry. I think had a foundry for a period of time in downtown Honolulu. My father, we like to talk about it sometimes. He went to Roosevelt High School at a time when Roosevelt High School was considered English standard school, and Roosevelt's rival school was Punahou. And because they're both in the same, right down the street from each other. When he'd drive me to school at Punahou and past Roosevelt, he'd be sure to sing his alma mater quite loud in the car from time to time to remind me of that old rivalry. But my mother and father met here on Oahu. They both were invited to some type of dinner event. She was wearing a dress with a fringe on it, that's kind of tassel-y fringe thing. My father got his pocket knife out and cut off a couple of the strings of the fringe from her dress, and kept it. And I guess the rest is history.
The cutting off the fringe of the dress, that sounds like a scene in a movie.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it sound like a scene in the movie?
So your father, he's from the Big Island, but there was still a cultural understanding. He wasn't a guy who just showed up for the mainland. He had a foundation.
My father was born and raised in Hawaii, and he loved Hawaii. I'm gonna apologize if I get emotional talking about my parents a little bit. I'm sure that happens every now and then. I say it's just liquid aloha is all it is. But from a very young age, my father would go hiking on his own. It would drive his mother crazy. His mother wouldn't know where he was. His sisters would say he would just take the dog and he would go off, and he would go off hiking on his own. I think he's pretty, at that young age, self-taught about Hawaii's natural resources. He loved to read. He had tons of books, old books about stuff. He loved Hawaii's natural history, and especially birds. Birds became something that he was known for. And he dedicated a good chunk of his life protecting birds. And so after meeting Mr. Monroe, he became a charter member of the Hawaii Audubon Society I think he's still a minor, but so he had a deep love and respect for Hawaii. It was his home, and he appreciated the values of this place. And in his letters, he writes those things to my mother, of how much she inspires him, or how much he appreciates her connection to this place, and how that's such a fine match for his love for this place as well.
Well, let's fast forward to you. What kind of a home did you grow up in?
I think I had a really, really unique upbringing and childhood. My mother was married before she was married to my father. And so I have one sister who's 19 years older than me, and I have another sister who's 20 some odd years, 23 years older than me. My oldest sister's friends used to call me minus 23 or something like that. I think my siblings were shocked when their mother let them know that she was pregnant. I think they were quite shocked by that. My parents were also older for the time, not so much now, but they were older when they had me. My mother was 44 and my father was 46. People invariably would say like, "Oh, is that your grandmother? Is that your grandfather?" And I'd be like, "No, that's my mother, that's my father." And at times, maybe that didn't always feel that positive. But what it allowed me to have is anybody who's been able to be raised a little bit by their grandparents, there's a different relationship. There was a lot of what would be considered grandparent wisdom. So I went everywhere with my parents, board meetings, civic club meetings, association meetings. I had a very unique upbringing in my home in Waimanalo, being right on the beach, being able to learn about all of those different species, learn about all of those different plants. From a young age, I knew the difference between what was a native and non-native bird, plant, etc. Those types of things ended up getting me into trouble in school from time to time.
Why would knowledge of natural world get you into trouble?
Right? You would think. But when your teacher is saying, like, oh, well, here's these birds, these are the Hawaiian birds, and I'd be like, well, actually, minas and doves and bulls and cardinals are not birds of Hawaii. They've been introduced, and these are actually native birds. These are actually the Hawaiian birds that, teachers are just not so much into that. And
Being schooled by a student, they're not into that?
no, we got an assignment in class to create a canoe. The assignment was to create a canoe. And so what my father did was he got out Peter S. Buck's book on canoes, and we looked up all of these different Polynesian canoes. We looked up what they look like. He made me learn all the different parts of a canoe. I needed to learn all of the different woods that go into making the different parts of the canoe. And I got a really bad grade for it. There was the A student had kind of taken a bar of soap and had, with their own hands, dug out a canoe shape.
Well, maybe you got a low grade, but you got a superior education. And I'd also rather ride in your canoe than in the bar. In
the dial soap one, or it might have been Irish Spring. I don't remember, but it was like, I remember as a kid, I was so young at the time. I remember looking at it and going, it's not even the right color. That of course got me into trouble as well for, saying somebody's canoe wasn't the right color. But anyway, yeah.
When you were spending time, especially with your mother's side of the family, were people speaking Hawaiian? Like what was the atmosphere like? Were there big family gatherings? Kind of put us in the setting.
Oh gosh. My mother is one of 15 children. And so growing up, being with family was a lot of fun and a lot of connection. Lots of music, lots of hula, lots of storytelling, lots of really great food, where different aunts and uncles had certain expertise and talent and skills, having certain uncles that are really the best at imu and digging the imu, making sure the pig goes in at the right time, all the other good stuff goes in, that it comes out at the right time, that it's super delicious. And that uncle knows all of those things, passes that on to their children. The aunt that knows how to make this particular dish and that particular dish and has the connections in order to get, whether it's the opihi or the opai or where you do that. The uncle and the aunt who carried on my grandmother's tradition of enjoying and loving slack key guitar. And so that would come out at some point in time, and guitar, and the other uncle that plays bass all the time, and my mom on the ukulele, and my other aunt on the guitar. And there's a songbook of the long family songs. Hawaiian language was not the dominant language that was spoken by everybody, but it certainly was there. It was the language through which we talked about everything that we did. So maybe English was the grammar that held it together a little bit, but all of the other words inside of there were Hawaiian. Certainly the aunts and uncles growing up, when they did not want the younger generations to totally know what they were talking about, some of them might slip into Hawaiian.
And when you were there and you would listen to maybe aunts and uncles speaking to each other, either completely in Hawaiian or, throwing in Hawaiian words, were you understanding most of it?
My mother would speak Hawaiian to me at home from time to time. And the hula, doing something that your hands are also making the motions of what those words are, gives you another sort of set of vocabulary. So yes, there was I think there was that component. And then my mother enrolled me in what might have been sort of a precursor to the immersion program. So there was a summer program for a period of time that was Hawaiian language based. So that was something I was able to participate in as well. My mother, even in her adulthood, continued to take Hawaiian language classes. She also took chanting classes. So that was pretty regular around the house.
I know that you grew up in Hawaii in the 70s, and in the 60s and 70s was the Hawaiian Renaissance, right? What was that experience like for your family? Do you remember it being, talked about, and so how did you experience it?
It has to do with the Polynesian Voyaging Society. My father loved the idea of hokulea. He loved what it became. And he was really fascinated and a supporter of hokulea. So I've got so if hokulea was around, we were definitely going down to the docks to just look at hokulea. And then he also took me to the departures. So I'm somewhere in those pictures of thousands of people at Kualoa. I'm in there somewhere, and when they would return, he would take me down there. It was such a uniting and uplifting spirit for Hawaii and for us. I think not just for Hawaiians, but for all of Hawaii. Such a uniting and uplifting spirit. The other part of that time period is also the recognition of the right to have a responsibility to care for land. We have a common understanding of the right to own, the right to use, but the right to have a responsibility to care for the land isn't common in our usual understanding of Western land tenure. And so around those same times when community members were going to Kaho'olawe and were raising awareness that maybe the live munitions bombing of an island might not be the best thing to do. And so that movement was also happening. My sister was an early member of the Protect Kaho'olawe Ohana. And so I witnessed her going to Kaho'olawe from when I was very young and being a part of that movement at Kaho'olawe. That time period, I still remember my parents not fully understanding why my sister was so passionate about this and why she wanted to do that. And I think there were those fears that if you get arrested, that could really impact your future.
Did your mother or any of her family ever talk about, I guess, the old days and contrast what it was like to be a Hawaiian, what it felt like when the culture was sort of dismissed, essentially, versus when it became celebrated in the Hawaiian Renaissance?
My grandmother experienced, she was born in the Hawaiian Kingdom, right? And she passes away when we're a state. She experiences all of that in between. And so my mother is born in 1926. And so born pre-statehood. And because of the relationship that my grandparents had with the Kingdom of Hawaii, the Republic, the territory to statehood was a difficult thing for my mother. The stories, however, of places is, I think, what's sometimes most heartbreaking. We have pictures of our families in different places. We've got pictures of them fishing in places. My grandfather holding his fish, my grandmother and on the hukilau net. Other types of places that were commonly visited by us and were a part of our life way. Access to those places, access to those resources was cut off. The resources themselves were not as they used to be. My family, you got to have fun regardless of how tragic the situation might be. So I think coupled with that, there were just these amazing stories from different periods of time. My mother and her brothers and sisters just tell these really amazing stories about World War II and what it was like to have the military in their hometown, and how her family did the servicemen's laundry, and what it meant to have curfew, and what the dances were like, and what it was like to dance with the servicemen. And Waikiki is another set of stories that my mother and father, but especially my mother, would love to tell. She danced in Waikiki, she performed in Waikiki for a period of time, and a completely different Waikiki, a Waikiki of a prior time when it was Hawaiians, and most of those hotels were still locally owned. They were established by either, Matson or the different families, and the Kellys, started Outrigger, and they still owned and managed those hotels. So the relationships between the hotels and the owners and the entertainers was really close.
Let's just fast forward to high school. How did you like it? How did you fit in? What do you think your persona was? Did people accurately perceive you? Just set the scene.
Yeah.
84 to 88.
I have
That's when you were
no idea. I have no idea. I think gosh, was it just a whole bunch of fake it till you make it? I really did appreciate and love the learning that I got there. I especially loved the diversity of opportunities that I got at Punahou. I knew that academics was important. It certainly was important to my parents. I definitely valued the social opportunities at Punahou perhaps more than the academics from time to time. I don't think I went to a ton of parties. I definitely didn't go to a ton of parties. I knew that there were lots of parties, but hula was definitely a big part of life. I paddled off and on in high school. That takes up a bit of time.
You're now a kumu hula. You're very into hula. You were very much part of the Holoku pageant, right? The annual sort of May Day pageant at Punahou. What was your highest height as far as Holoku? What's your best memory? Just paint the picture.
Oh gosh, that's that whole time period is just such an incredible memory for me. But just being able to experience like how much this meant to Mr. Eldridge, and how much he communicated and conveyed what this means to us as a people, and what we are representing, and what we're upholding, and the traditions that we get to be a part of. That all felt like a really important responsibility, but it just felt like an amazing system to be a part of.
So in senior year, your classmates voted you queen of the Holoku pageant. What did that mean to you? What did that mean to your mother? What did that mean to your parents?
I still remember my mother taught me the dance that I did for tryouts. and I remember it was rough. She had a lot of corrections and a lot of, and really instilling, you know, if you're going to do something, do it well. Right. And she really, really wanted to make sure, if we're going to do something, we do it well. And same for the actual Holoku pageant that they actually have a pretty big role in. Parents have this role that they got to take care of a bunch of stuff, make sure that it gets done. They have a role in the pageant too. And I think it provided them an opportunity to maybe see me as a part of Punahou and engage in that way. It was a positive experience for them. And I think they were proud to be able to support me in that and to support Punahou in really reflecting an important part of our culture and traditions.
Do you remember the Roosevelt song that your dad sang to you to troll you while you were driving past Roosevelt? And can you sing it?
Definitely can't sing it. I'm not very good at singing. I can chant really well, but I'm not very good at singing.
Okay.
Partly I think because, you know, when you have so many great singers in your family, if you're just like slightly not that great, they let you know you're not that great. But just this past weekend, we were at Dave & Buster's has this like Pauhana Fridays on their roof deck, and they have Hawaiian music, and they were giving away shirts, and they were asking this question, and it was about it was the next lyrics in this song that this guy, he sang the first line and he was looking for the next lyrics. And nobody knew what it was. He was trying to give a shirt away. And of course, I knew the next line. And so I said the words, and he's like, no, you can't just say the words. You actually have to sing. And I was like appalled, but it was awful. But I got the shirt anyway.
What song was it?
Papalina Lahi Lahi.
And what was the line?
He did the He aloha wau ya oela, and I said ko papalina lahi lahi was the next line. Not gonna sing it for you, David. Sorry.
What does it mean?
It says, here is my affection and my love for you and your delicate cheeks.
Sounds like music. I'm impressed. All right, well, Ulalia Woodside, it's been so fun talking to you. And
it has been fun talking with you too.
We'll have to do a part 2 because there's a lot more to learn, but I got to let you go. You have to protect the environment. And so I need to let you get back to your work.
I really want to thank you for doing this project, David. I wasn't quite sure what it was, but as I listened to the other interviews that you did, and this kind of really unique time period that we grow up in, those 70s to the 80s. And then also we had such a unique class. Sometimes I look at all of our classmates and I wonder what a social experiment that was, you know, where we are all from and all of that. So I appreciate that you have an interest in us and our stories and want to capture them. Have a nice evening. It's late for you. Thank you very much. Aloha.